Hello and welcome to episode 116 of PubShorts titled Supersonic. My name is Dr. KK. We are big fans of Oasis, Tony and I. But before I let Tony introduce himself, I'm the innovation officer at Trinka. And Tony, please take it over from me and introduce yourself.
Thank you. You don't want you to take it over, KK. This will go nowhere. Hello, everyone. I'm Tony O'Rourke. Welcome to PubShorts. I'm VP for Partnerships here at Inago. In case you're new to PubShorts, this is a regular video podcast which KK and I record every at least once or twice a week, where we discuss stories relating to the world of academic publishing and whether it's technology, policy, whatever it might be. And today we're focusing on AI and the responsible use of AI. This episode is called Supersonic. We like to give the episodes name the episodes after English pop songs, and I think most people know the song Supersonic by Oasis. With the song's swagger, its speed really fits this week's story around AI evolving faster than policy, researchers racing and struggling to keep control, and everyone trying to stay grounded while technology takes off.
Excellent, Tony, and the explanation that you gave why we title is also is encapsulated in our first story, which is a big story. I think it's one of the biggest stories related to AI use, and it comes from Research Information, and it's titled "Wiley Guidelines Give Researchers a Clear Path Forward in AI Use." So the first three stories are related to each other. So these are guidelines for not just authors but also for editors and reviewers. 84% of researchers are using AI as per several surveys, and many want publisher guidance. So Wiley did an interview survey with all researchers and experts, as in has as many as they could find, and these guidelines sort of summarize all the findings from the needs of the researcher community. The most important thing that I'll keep on stressing is that from the peer review point of view, Wiley still recommends that peer reviewers should not be using AI, let's say popular AI tools like ChatGPT, and upload, let's say, an author manuscript for generating a review. So that is still a strict sort of a no as far as I understood. And AI edited photography, for example, is banned in some journals. And most of the sort of guidelines still apply to authors who might be using AI to either generate content or at least improve content. So the overarching theme, obviously, as Tony mentioned, is that Wiley wants all researchers, including editors and peer reviewers, to use responsibly AI, and also factor this in the fact that there would be responsible users of AI within, let's say, a research paper, and hence do not have a knee-jerk reaction to finding potential fingerprints of AI. So it's a sort of a rounded policy, but I'll pause here and I'll ask you, Tony. I mean, what are your thoughts when you first heard the story and you saw the details? Did you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, listen, Wiley, great organisation. They're very much leading the way, I think, in terms of establishing the rules around AI, how AI should be used. And this particular latest document of theirs is absolutely worth a read if you get a chance to. But it kind of mirrors what we've been trying to do as well with our own responsible AI movements.
Right.
Encouraging best practice, encouraging disclosure at every stage in the process. Look, AI is not going to go away, but how AI is being used is an important part of that peer review process, that peer review decision. So authors, if you're not sure, go to the Inago page, look at the Responsible AI Movement pages, and find out, at least from our perspective, and actually also from the perspective of leading academics that we've been speaking to, what responsible use of AI actually is.
Right. So I'll touch on these, sort of provisions that in the Wiley sort of web page itself. But in a nutshell, the guidelines cover disclosure standards, overarching sort of disclosure standards, peer review confidentiality protections, image integrity, which I covered briefly, as well as a reproducibility framework. So let's take a look at the STM Publishing news article. So this is another thing. I mean, I got to know about this through these two articles. So the most important thing from this particular sort of slice of the story is that the disclosure standards part of it, which was highlighted to me. I did not get it the first time, and it offers how to sort of do it in terms of guidelines regarding how to sort of disclose your AI assistant statement. So I'll move on to the actual Wiley page itself. So this is the page; it's quite comprehensive. And Tony, if I'm not mistaken, you tried to download these guidelines. I
Yeah.
do. I don't know.
Are you planning to show the page, KK, here?
Yeah, this is the page. Can you not see the page?
I can't. No.
What are you seeing on your screen when I'm?
Just you. I see you.
I think you. It is okay. Let me just fix that. Give me a second. I'll go back to our stream start thing. Give me a second. So apologies for that. There was a screen share issue, but we are back, and I'm Tony. I'm sharing the actual Wiley page itself, which I believe you have already taken a look. And as far as I understand, there is no downloadable guideline, but maybe I'm wrong. But this page itself is quite comprehensive. So do you have any thoughts on
No,
it
this is the
before?
page I was referring. This is the page I was referring to. It's really, really worth
Right, right.
just linking or sort of bookmarking.
Yeah, so let me just go scroll to the author section. The first thing, the authors are responsible for their work, which is the sort of hallmark of everything that we've been saying, Tony, in relation to responsible AI as well. And AI terms need to be read carefully, and always human oversight needs to be always there, even when authors are using. And a clear disclosure of AI is recommended. And authors are also urged to protect their content and their rights while using AI tools, and hence they need to understand if suppose AI tools are using their data for training purposes and everything. So AI is a tool. If you want to summarize it, AI is a tool and not a replacement for human expertise. And we have specific guidelines for individual sort of stakeholders, and some of these I already have taken through. I mean, walked you through, Tony. I mean, peer reviewers must maintain confidentiality and should not be using the manuscripts that they receive in terms of what them needing to do a peer review. They are not supposed to upload these into, let's say, ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude. And finally, editors, from the editorial point of view, editors should focus on the manuscript quality and integrity, and AI fingerprints themselves do not qualify for a content piece being bad. So that's something. And editors also need to understand the different types of AI, which is all, I mean, we all kind of know that, but to have everything under a single sort of a big guideline is very useful. And there are obviously specific guidelines related to literature review and related use cases. So without me sort of laboring through all my points, it is a comprehensive guide, and this is probably the sort of foundational document that anybody who is interested in knowing how, as a researcher, you can use AI and responsibly disclose it. So I wholeheartedly recommend all researchers, all of our audience, to sort of read this. And if suppose you're a publisher, I would like you to also think of publishing your own version of these guidelines, or maybe getting inspired by it, and maybe even linking to it if suppose that is something acceptable. So, Tony, your thoughts?
But what we're seeing, KK, increasingly publishers are producing versions of these guidelines. In many cases, and I've said this before, what the publisher states in their guidelines is rather limited, and you can see that just like.
Mm-hmm.
Have I frozen on your
Yeah,
screen?
you were frozen. Yes. Yeah. Now you're back.
Okay. But there are a number of publishers who are really, really thought about how AI should be used and give very, very explicit guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
So I urge you, if you're working with a publisher and you're not sure, you must ask that question. Ask the question. Tell me what's acceptable.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. So this section is something that I would like to reiterate, that AI and critical thinking, these are sort of, AI is a tool and you have to use critical thinking if you're a user who uses AI for whatever reason. This especially applies to research and as an authors. And if you can go through the rest of it, and AI in peer review is something that I personally was fascinated by, in the sense that it is still sort of only, it seems like the reviewers are the sort of most affected in terms of these regulations, although I understand the copyright implications. But at the same time, there is a lot of scope for peer review being enhanced by the use of AI as well. All right. So any other thoughts on
Absolutely, yeah.
this, Tony?
No, I was just gonna concur with what you're saying. Yes, I think AI in peer review is going to change
Mm-hmm.
how peer review is done, but I think only in a positive way. It's going to support what the work that the human peer reviewer does. The human peer reviewer isn't going to go away,
Mm-hmm.
but what it might mean is that the process might be accelerated, or it might be, greater evidence can be surfaced to support peer review decisions more quickly, more accurately than ever before.
Excellent. So moving on to the next story, which is very I'm very happy to see that there are other publishers as well who are doing something similar. So EDP Sciences updates its policy on AI and ethics, and this new policy, Tony, sets clear principles for using generative AI and AI assisted technologies, and it provides again guidance for authors, reviewers, and editors. Covers all sorts of responsible use cases. We have already sort of gone through most of it, but I'm very happy
Yeah,
to see other publishers also sort of joining suit and explicitly stating these. I think you can there's more to it if you dig through, but the main point is all the fact that responsible use of AI across the researcher spectrum is what EDP Science also recommends. Any
yeah,
thoughts?
yeah, and they're one of the publishers I was referring to
Mm-hmm.
earlier on about increasingly changing their guidelines to reflect how AI should be used.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good example. We're going to see more and more stories like this because I think it's every publisher is going to have a detailed set of instructions within too long.
Right. And Tony, if somebody were to be interested in knowing what responsible AI from the Inago movement means, how can they find more about it?
Well, as I said earlier on, all you need to do is go to the Inago website and just search for responsible AI movement, and it'll take you directly to the page.
Excellent. So moving on to another sort of slice, another viewpoint in terms of the AI disclosures. Now, researchers are responsible to disclose it, but are there consequences of such disclosure? This question is sort of evaluated in two separate preprints that came out in the last few weeks. Both of these came to my attention through Journalogy by James Butcher. Please subscribe to the newsletter if you haven't already. The first one is from medRxiv. Very interesting. Authors self-disclosed use of artificial intelligence in research submissions to 49 biomedical journals, a cross-sectional study. So approximately 25,000 research papers were evaluated, and only, Tony, approximately 5 or 6% of the authors stated that they used AI, and most of them used.
I,
Yeah, go on.
no, I was just going to ask the question: over what period? I mean, if that was this year, I'd be staggered. It's that low.
So
But
the
I see that
submissions
the
were
study was
between,
from 2024.
yeah, 2024 April and November, so approximately 8 months
Yeah.
approximately. uh no 7 months, yeah. So and most of the people who used AI used it for writing assistance, and chatbots like ChatGPT, Gemini, etc. were the frequently used ones. Now, there's a interesting geographical finding here. Authors from South America and Europe were more likely to disclose AI use, having more authors in a paper. Also, let's say the author byline is long, that means that there is less chance of disclosure, which is also very interesting. And eventually, the conclusions of the study is that authors might not know when to disclose because they are confused about it, as well as they might be hesitant because of many reasons. And these are the sort of repercussions in terms of being perceived as somebody who, let's say, quote unquote, unethically used AI is what would is a possible interpretation if suppose you were to
Yeah.
disclose that you are using AI. So very interesting point. Any thoughts on this, and especially the
I
geographical?
think it just demonstrates, KK, how quickly this sector is moving. I mean, as I said earlier, this study was from 2024. I'm sure if that same study were done in 2025, the figure would be far higher than 5.7%, because it's been this year that publishers have been changing their guidelines or adjusting their guidelines to reflect how AI should be used responsibly.
Right.
So there's going to be greater engagement with authors. It won't be at 100% still, of course, but it should be far higher than 5.7%
Right.
now. And
Right.
we see that in submissions that we receive.
Right. And Tony, just to sort of compare, as in a few episodes ago, we discussed a PubMed analysis of papers published, I think, until 2024, like a 4-year period or something like that. And the
Yeah,
percentage of documents or abstracts that seem to have AI assistance in there was approximately 25%. So we are looking at 1/5 of, let's say, potential such papers having the actual AI disclosure. And obviously, that number needs to match more closely with the actual use of AI. So maybe it'll take time to catch up. And there is another reason why this might be, I mean, the perception issue that we already touched on is evaluated in this sort of archive preprint, and it's titled Understanding Reader Perception Shift upon Disclosure of AI Authorship. Two interesting preprints. So this explores how telling people AI helped write something or improve something changes how they feel about the author themselves. This was done. 261 participants were involved, and they looked at how revealing AI could sort of affect the impression that they make at the reader. So the results show that
yeah.
disclosing AI use generally made people trust the author less, and people also felt that the author was less caring, less competent, and less likable. Now, nothing nice about any of these things, but at the same time, this is a perception. This is a social, cultural perception that it
Mm,
slowly needs to change. And these negative
mm,
films, Tony, was the strongest for social and personal writing. So the one sort of silver lining is that research writing, when if suppose you disclose it, maybe the negative perceptions are, let's say, less sort of strong. And finally, participants felt AI use meant less human sincerity and effort, and some people were okay with AI use if they were more familiar with AI, which means higher literacy also sort of corresponded with better perception. So this sort of comes, brings to the bookend of, I mean, is a bookend of all the sort of related stories related to the responsible use of AI. And what this article and the last article as well suggests that we need more policy changes, more sort of guidelines, and maybe even ethics, education, AI related literacy at the sort of institution level and maybe at the publisher level, for all of these to sort of come turn around to be sort of so such that AI is an ally as Wiley wants it to be.
yeah. And don't you think again this is all part of the evolving use of AI? It's one thing educating authors in the responsible use of AI for their own content creation, but at the same time, when you're educating an author about their own responsible use, you're educating an author about how AI is generally being used,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore that should change their perception in terms of how AI has been used in other papers. I mean, look, at the end of the day, AI is another tool, admittedly a very, very powerful tool. People don't criticize the use of computers or calculators in doing advanced mathematics. It's a fact. It's there, and AI is exactly the same.
Right. Moving on to the next, we have a bunch of stories, so I'll have to sort of increase my speed in terms of coverage. The next one is from our favorite AI labs brand, Anthropic's AI lab, and this is very sort of interesting, Tony. Signs of introspection in large language models. Basically, are large language models thought loops evaluating how they are thinking, and they have sort of self awareness regarding their own thoughts. So this obviously what Anthropic tried to find out. They found some signs that AI can do this, but it is still not perfect. The best AI model that they tested did better at introspection, and they used a trick called concept injection to test this. And they also tested if AI could tell if it made a mistake while these tests were carried out, and AI seemed to check its own intention. So a lot of these things as a child, human beings naturally do, they find the better or the larger language models already doing. And AI seems to also be able to control its own thoughts when asked. And this could, the good aspect of this is to make the processes that happen behind more explainable to humans as to why the AI might have done what it did. And finally, the researchers who did this research cautioned that AI might not always be honest about its own thoughts, which we already know in previous experiments from the Anthropic laboratories themselves. And it does not mean that AI is conscious. But the point is that by knowing how introspection works in a large language model, we will be able to understand them better and potentially prevent potential Terminator-like situation in the future. But more importantly, we would be able to understand why large language models would do a certain set of things and correspondingly change the way we use them as tools to improve the output for example, for a publishing or a peer review use case.
As long as it doesn't remove the need for human critical thinking.
Yes, sure, but we are in a sort of a it's a curve, right, in terms of how AI is becoming more and more adaptable and trustworthy. We are not asking for
Yeah.
humans to be removed. Humans always will be in the loop. I think for the foreseeable future for all such integrations. But the quality of the output that the humans need to check would be substantially higher, and there'll be fewer and fewer hallucinations and, let's say,
Yeah.
inaccuracies. So that's a study, and I'm
I
very
wonder,
happy.
I wonder if we have this conversation in a year's time, what we'll be saying, because it's moving so fast. It's almost impossible to keep pace.
Right, and to be fair,
So
Anthropic.
lucky viewers, we're keeping pace for you.
Yes, that's true. But Anthropic is doing the real good work, and I'm very
Yeah,
happy that
yeah.
Anthropic is doing it. I think Gemini was also doing similar research. I see very less, or rather, at least publicly, sort of talked about research from
Available.
OpenAI so far. So
Yeah.
let's see. And there's another sort of related. There are two other related stories. So this is a worldview article. I thought it was a very interesting one. It was published late last month. It's written by Vinay K. Chaudhary. I've never read any content piece by him, but it's a very interesting article. So the title is "We Need a New Turing Test to Assess AI's Real World Knowledge." So the basic argument that the author makes is that standardized tests and benchmarks often fail to capture the AI's true understanding of real world complexities. And I believe Ian Mulvaney's blog also published something related to this earlier today. Actually, I haven't as in earlier today, as in on the 12th of November. I haven't yet caught up with that, but it's very similar to this. And some examples that the author gives are examples from law and finance to show that AI excelling at exams but faltering in practical application. So, what does the author propose? It's a new type of Turing test involving extensive interaction with human specialists, and there is also an angle of customized, specialized tests for each subject area. So, one of the examples which I was not familiar with is the author is suggesting, like, you have a demon, which I believe is a finance expert, JP Morgan CEO, Jamie Dimon. If suppose you need to evaluate AI's use case for finance purposes, then you should have the CEO of JP Morgan sort of write the test and conduct the test to evaluate it, because that will be the best human expert evaluating the AI. And that is the main sort of conceptual shift that this author is proposing. And I am curious to know what you think about this, like specialized tests to sort of not just general benchmarks, because we've seen that a lot. For example, for peer review purposes, we can look at models from the point of view of how they do for general, say, deep thinking or critical reasoning, but it still probably would not be enough, and we need a specific, like, a who is the best peer reviewer in the world, find that person and let them create a test and let the AIs be judged over that test. So, your thoughts, Tony?
Bring it on. I mean, I think it's so important that these tests match the increasing complexity of these tools.
Right.
So I'm being shallow. I'm still reeling at the fact that the CEO of one of the world's largest financial organizations is called Demon. Maybe that's just me. No, I think it's true. If the current tests don't necessarily reflect, how these tools are working, how these tools are thinking, then new tools need to be developed. No, I think absolutely agree with it.
Right. And the last main article that we have is another news feature from Nature earlier this month. It is titled "Can AI Be Truly Creative?" And it explores how AI models are challenging traditional definitions of creativity, which long has been considered a unique human trait. And so there's history for the debate all the way through Ada Lovelace and Alan Turing. So while AI, Tony, has shown impressive results in tasks such as chess and Go, these are games, the current way of generative AI represents a new challenge, as per the article, and the human creators still have an edge, overall edge, and it is unlikely, I think, as the article sort of summarizes, that it's unlikely that the AI can be considered as truly creative as humans. So we need much more sort of improved versions of AI to eventually reach that stage. So this is a summary of the article, and I want to know if you think that human creativity will be challenged in the next decade at the level that the humans are right now by generative AI.
I think human creativity to a certain extent already is. I mean, you just have to look at some of the the use of AI, for example, in images.
Hmm.
10 years ago, somebody might have used Photoshop to doctor an image. Now it can be done in seconds using Gemini or any of these tools.
Hmm.
I think that particular horse is already bolted.
Right.
What we have to think about is how humans adapt and can benefit and learn from this technology to improve their own output.
Right. And I think we touched on this as well. I think I don't remember who. I think the father of artificial intelligence had this thought that the current technologies and the sort of the architectures would not facilitate that leap in terms of AI creatively being unique, and that's also touched on in this article. So we probably need to have, let's say, more than just deep learning as a sort of a technology. When the next such leap happens, maybe that'll make AI at least at par with basic human levels of creativity and originality. So we'll await such developments. But Tony, are you ready for the quick hits? We have four. This
Yes.
Yeah. All right. All right, the first one, it is not at all surprising because the title says too much social media gives AI chatbots brain rot.
Yeah,
I don't
why should the AI chatbots be any different?
True.
We all suffer from brain rot from too much social media.
Right, right. But in this case, if you the actual actual situation is where content from social media is used to train AIs, and which obviously results in bad inputs
Yeah,
and
yeah.
bad outputs. So from that point of view, so this is something that AI vendors should be careful regarding if they are training their large language models on a lot of social media content, which is as Tony you rightly said, it is not advisable even for human beings. So let's not give social media content to AIs for their
What's
training.
that expression? Junk in, junk out.
Yes, yes, yes. I think that I thought it was something even worse, and I didn't want to use the right word. But yeah, anyway, so
Uh,
that's the first one. First of the quick hits. The second one, Microsoft AI chief says only biological beings can be conscious. So I don't have anything much to say apart from the fact that I read his book, the big 2024 AI book, The Coming Wave, written by him and somebody else, and I almost I think I agreed with just about everything that he said in that book. And when I read such statement, this statement, I feel a sort of lack of science fiction imagination and maybe realism in terms of thinking that only biological beings can be technically conscious. But we don't even know what consciousness is, and I think I disagree with Mustafa Sulaiman in this point. What do you think?
um, I suppose to an extent, it depends on the philosophical definition of what this consciousness actually mean. I think increasingly we're going to see these tools emulate consciousness, whether they're truly conscious or not,
Mm-hmm.
is another matter. Because they are, after all, a series of codes that have been entered into a computer.
Mm.
I don't know. I mean, this is somebody who works day in day out with AI, and has very clear ideas about what it is and what it should be.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think we should dismiss it too quickly.
Yeah, so I think you actually had a better quote that true consciousness may not be achievable, but whatever we understand as consciousness, I think we are only maybe a decade away from the way the artificial intelligence technologies are evolving. So
Yeah,
let's
but still, whether it's true consciousness in the human sense, or whether it's just emulated so well that it looks like it's
right, right,
conscious,
right, right.
but there's still an off button somewhere.
Yeah. All right. The next story: Google pulls Gemma from AI Studio. AI Studio is it's a Google, I think, notebook LM adjacent product, which is very popular among researchers in terms of doing things like peer review. So Google has pulled a very small model, Gemma, from the AI Studio package after a senator from the US accuses model of defamation. So in a nutshell, smaller models tend to hallucinate because they are small and their use cases are strictly defined. And apparently, somebody used AI Studio with Gemma to create some information which is obviously wrong. And the senator, I mean, the incorrect information was about the senator, and that resulted obviously the senator asking Google to withdraw it. And this is a big sort of a case. The main point here is that not all language models are created alike, and if you have a particular use case, you must choose the right model. And for example, for peer review, the best models, or the biggest models, would likely give you the best results. That's a sort of core point. Any thoughts on this, Tony?
No, apart from the fact it just struck me I'd never heard of Gemma before as an AI model.
Right. It is one of the smaller models. It's not intended for whatever that this use case was, and you have to study. I mean, I recommend everybody. I myself haven't studied Google's AI Studio, and I've been keeping sort of telling people as well as myself that I would do it. But yeah, it is something that I mean, when Notebook LM came into my life, I started using it extensively. And similarly, researchers are using Google AI Studio, and I haven't caught up to that. But lots of things to do anyway in life. That brings us to the last quick hit. Mind captioning AI decodes brain activity to turn thoughts into text. So the basically this the article's title explains what it is, but it's primarily intended as a medical use case for people with cognitive neurological conditions. So it's very nice. But obviously, I can think of only science fiction applications, and I'm immediately taken into the world of Neuromancer and Snow and Neil Stephenson. Tony, are you too? Are you with me?
Absolutely not. No, I've not read either of those two books, but I'm curious to find out what this particular technology is looking to do.
Well, basically, it looks at the brain activity and converts that into text based on thoughts. But anyway, so that's basically I don't know some sort of a
Well, that
computer brain
really is
interface.
that's kind of a wow moment, and it kind
Yeah.
of opens up this of the whole study of neuropsychology, neurology to a much wider audience. If you
Yep.
can translate those signals into actually human decipherable content.
Right. Right. All right, so that brings us to the end of episode 116, where you learned that the science fiction of Neil Stephenson and William Gibson is coming true very shortly in your lives. But if you want to know more about what our predictions are, Tony has been a Nostradamus in many many shows. So if you want to follow Tony's predictions, you would have had to watch all the episodes, and you can still do that. And Tony will explain how.
Well, I've never been compared to Nostradamus before, and I hope I never will again. But yes, so this is episode 116. If you want to see all previous 115 episodes, yes, they're all still available. They're on our playlist on YouTube. Just search for Ronaldo PubShorts and do the usual: press like, share with your colleagues, leave some comments. We'd love to hear from you. And make sure you've got a couple of days free to watch all the previous episodes.
I think we need to increase that to 3 days. A long weekend, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at least. Well, yeah, yes, a lot of time.
Right, right. And thank you for your viewership and audience and all the comments that you sent to us. And before we leave you, Tony, it's been a while since we had an Oasis song. Any Oasis related news in your life? Have you been to?
Yeah, I know when we talked about this before we started recording, I didn't think, but yes, I know only not directly, but excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. And if I sneeze once, I'd tend to sneeze more than once. My son went to see Oasis in Cardiff in the UK earlier this year. So it was one of the best concert he'd ever been to.
Mm-hmm.
And my niece, my brother's daughter, who lives in Australia, also just went to see Oasis this weekend in Melbourne, and said it was absolutely fantastic. So I kind of regret not staying in the queue. I think I was like 42,000 in the queue for tickets, and didn't get any in the end.
Yeah.
But no, I'm very envious.
I'm yet to catch an Oasis concert, but I'm looking forward to. I hope that they come out with a new studio album because my music has been inspired by Oasis more than most bands I would say that I've listened to.
When years and years ago, when I lived in Cambridge in England, Oasis played in a pub which probably had about, I don't know, space for about 100 people, about 150 people. This was before they were big, and somebody I worked with went to see them and said how bad they were. But clearly they changed over a very short period of time. I kind of wish I went to that gig as well. I think it's 93 or 92, very early on anyway.
Well, just before, definitely, maybe. Yeah. All right. So, with
Oh,
that,
definitely before. I was before their first single.
oh, so definitely. Okay. Anyway, we'll talk about the Oasis discography in a later episode. Yeah. Until that later episode, this is Dr. Kike signing off on behalf of everyone who helps us bring such content. We will see you in the next one. Bye, Tony.
See you in the next one.